I'm Kamala Platt and live about 6 blocks from here. Well, we're in Elmendorf Park, which is right next to Our Lady of the Lake University, and this bird island has been here for decades. It's unclear to me when it first came, but some of the early writing about the lake does mention the island, so it was here pretty early on. Then it was given to the city with the stipulation that the city should preserve it as city park and take care of it. And if it didn't, then that was the end of the deal. So it had almost like a conservation easement kind of thing to the agreement way back then. Cormorants, those are the blackbirds, and the snowy egrets, and they're sort of medium sized between the cattle egret and the one way you'll tell them is they have orange or yellow feet, black legs and yellow feet. I've also seen great blue herons here. There was one 2 days ago, but I'm not sure where they nest here. And then there's a cara that nests close by and that I've seen on the island quite a bit. There are, the cattle egrets are not in as big numbers. I think most of these will probably go south, whereas some stay here. And some, I think, just go to the coast. The main thrust for the military was that they were seeing a lot of cattle egrets crossing over the airfield, and they were afraid that they might strike that the airplanes, when they're taking off and landing, might strike them. They were in training. It's interesting because these cattle egrets can be invasive, but they're around the world. So it seems to me that it would be good training for them to encounter a few cattle egrets if they needed to, because they're going to encounter them elsewhere. But there have been, I guess, close to 100 bird strikes a year since they've started counting. And they didn't used to count, because that was one thing that people were asking, like, well, wait a minute, we went through several wars, I used to work at Kelly, that wasn't a big concern. Anyway, they were crossing because there's a landfill over there on the other side of the airfield, where they go and feed. That pattern may change, I'm thinking, with the summer, with more places to feed, with more of them here nesting, and but anyway, that's what's been happening in the last couple of years, and they're saying 800 to 1,200 birds cross over, but it's a short time when they're crossing too, I think, but at least it is here. When they come back, there's about, at night, I think 200, between 200 and 300 is the tops. The great egrets that are nesting right now are, they nest a little earlier than the cattle egrets. One of the things that you see first that they're doing is I think it's mostly the male, brings sticks in to build or rebuild the nests, and it's sort of a courtship gift, I guess, to the female. Pretty much 24/7, the bird will start sitting on the nest once she's laid eggs, and then the other bird will, more than likely, the partner will be around the area. The city, in conjunction with Joint Base San Antonio, or certain parts of the city, had been studying this evidently for a couple years, although they hadn't sort of let the word out. I'm member of the Westside Creeks Restoration Committee, which is under Sarah, the San Antonio River Authority. And so that was how I first heard about their plans to mitigate or harass they use both those words, the egrets here. Particularly, they are targeting the cattle egrets. But the problem is that if you've got a bunch of birds staying together, that you're probably going to chase them all off if you chase some, or chase off some of every species. Here at Elmendorf, they were setting up fencing over here and setting up signs and getting ready to do cannons, sound stuff that sounds like cannons, and pyrotechnics, which was bright lights. But then I was here early in the morning over on the other side and saw one of the, I think it was a USDA person, come and take pictures in the nests, and I could see the bird was on her nest that morning, the bird that we had watched, and I saw her fly off, and then he came just when he got on the island, and then he did found 3 eggs when he was taking pictures. So that was what stopped things. And the reason it stopped them was because there's a Migratory Bird Act that says that the mitigation, harassment, this kind of thing, that should not be happening when the birds are nesting. You're not to know, but part of it is also just a better understanding of urban ecosystems and how we fit in. And part of the problem that I think has happened that caused this whole, what I would say is a misunderstanding, is that people that there's this concept that in urban areas that birds are not natural here, that the two are incompatible. And yet there's been a strong green space, green belt movement in a lot of inner city urban areas, and it's often led by community, actually, that has totally negated that, and said, no, wait a minute, this is real important stuff for us. And that's a cultural quality of life issue for people, but it also reflects on the birds. I mean, if the birds are doing well, then we're doing well also. If there's really 1,200 birds at the landfill, that there may be an overpopulation around the city of the cattle egrets in particular. I don't think it applies to these other birds. But that is partly caused by the conditions in the city that is similar, not nearly as obnoxious, but similar to what the grackles are experiencing, where we establish an area that has the kind of things that they need to live, but creates a connection where they're not in a natural space there, and so they're pooping and making noise and causing troubles. But that's something we've created. So to blame the birds for it is a little bit inaccurate, I guess. I have observed the cattle egrets in particular since living in India as a child, but the others probably even, we had more great blue herons where I grew up in Kansas, in the sandhills especially. We would go out, and also smaller green herons, which I've seen here once or twice, I think. And And but yeah, no, I grew up watching some of these birds, and then when I was studying Chicano literature at UT, some of the documents from, I think it's the Plan de Santa Barbara, isn't it, that mentions Aztlan, the place of herons. And in fact, one of the texts that we read in my Transporter Chicano Lit class is Curandera by Carmen Tafoya, and that book, I think she had originally sent it to Place of Heron's Press, but Place of Heron being so important to people that were familiar with some of the legends, and part of that is that it comes from a Mexican story of the people that settled around Mexico City having come from Aztlan or Place of Heron. So for the people who are living here, then it's like, okay, this shows the connection of and the traversing of the continent of our ancestors, and shows that we've been here all the time. And so it has a very deep, significant meaning. And so when I saw this, and other people that have studied that literature or just familiar with it in their cultural upbringing, to see the birds here on the west side of San Antonio seemed very appropriate, and sort of cool, yeah.